The human sphere, a multinational colonization of the galaxy, is under threat from the Combined Army, an expansionist alien empire led by the Evolved Intelligence. Prevented from mass invasion because of the dangers of unstable wormhole travel, they are now in the last stages of completing the Acheron Gateway. It is now down to an elite squad of soldiers gathered from the far corners of the human sphere to traverse the wormhole and sabotage the aliens' plans before it's too late. These are the chronicles of their mission aboard the Defiance. After successfully extracting Vaarah Zandar and escaping the O12 facility, the crew of the Defiance prepare themselves to escort the HVT to an O12 base on the surface of Paradiso. Kiang spends time in training, helping prepare the team and giving them all a buff when using armor-piercing rounds. He does not have the time or the facilities to heal his wounds, so he will be beginning the mission with 2 points of health less than usual. Uma also takes time training, helping everyone improve their use of light weapons, giving the crew a free reroll of a yellow die when shooting with them. Kaden gives everyone pointers on how to move fast without making a noise, giving everyone a +2 move buff when out of the enemy's line of sight. And just like Kiang, he's nursing his wound from the previous mission, reducing his total hit points by 1. Finally, Jazz programs improvements to everyone's firewall, improving everyone's defense from hacking attacks. It is of vital importance for the team to escort Vaarah safely into the hands of O12. However, the Shasvastii are on the planet's surface and have erected anti-aircraft batteries in the surrounding jungle. The team has to touch down some distance from the O12 base. As they make their way through the jungle and close in on their objective, they are spotted by Shasvastii forces, and now it is a race to get to safety. The team begin the mission far from the base, pursued by a Jaith and being hounded by tigers. As they fight through resistance and incoming attackers, the crew will come across the victims of the insidious Shasvastii, and although regrettable, these bodies may carry important equipment. At the end of their chase, they will have to hack the console leading to the O12 base to open the blast door and enter the facility. Still nursing some wounds and exhausted from their escape from the orbital station, the crew press on, determined to get Vaarah delivered safely. With Uma and Jazz leading the crew through the jungle, Kiang and Kaden protecting the rear, Vaarah is safely tucked between them. The journey so far has been thankfully uneventful, but that's when Uma sees the tigers ahead running toward them. Tigers are beasts that the Shasvastii have trained for the purpose of running down prey. They are fast and brutal in close combat, but can be taken down at range very easily. Behind them, Kiang spots a Jaith running through the woodland at breakneck speeds, raising its guns towards the party. Jaith are muscle-bound warriors, well equipped for fighting in dense terrain, as they wear visors to help see the enemy through low visibility zones. This particular Jaith is from the Pit Patrol. They run with specially trained tigers that hunt down their prey with even more ferocity than their regular brethren. Uma reacts first and takes a shot at the nearest tiger, firing her pistols with wild abandon. The result is strong, and because the tiger gets no defense from ranged attacks, it is killed outright. She takes another shot at the other tiger in range, and although rolls poorly, her ability to turn blanks into successes gets her 3 hits, just enough to kill the tiger. The Jaith Pit Patrol then activates and moves up to get into range of Kiang. Before making an attack, a tiger pitbull jumps out from the undergrowth right by Kiang and Kaden. That's when the Jaith takes his shot at Kiang. Unleashing his submachine gun, the Jaith gets 2 successes and is able to cancel a block from Kiang's roll. However, the Yu Qing Invincible lives up to his name and manages to block both successes. Even with the tiger breathing down his neck, Kiang takes aim at the Jaith and opens fire with his shotgun. Both roll fantastically well, but because Kiang had more dice, this meant that the Jaith took 3 wounds and received the stunned state. Seeing the alien injured, Kiang tries to capitalize by firing again. The roll is strong again and obliterates the Jaith where he stands. The tiger to the crew's west charges forward. It runs through the forest with ease, leaping and bounding toward Uma, and jumps, attacking with its razor claws. Although making a valiant defense, she still takes a wound as the tiger slashes her arm. Jazz now activates, and because the tiger is deadly in close combat engagements, she puts some distance between herself and it. She takes a shot with her stun pistol, and although she was unable to harm the creature, she did manage to stun it. With her remaining movement, she makes more effort to get moving toward the O12 base. The tiger pitbull now makes a ferocious attack on Kiang, but Kiang's impeccable defense holds back the creature, leaving him unscathed. This doesn't stop the tiger from making a further attack, but Kiang saw it coming and his reflexes and armor saved him again. He makes fighting off a vicious, rabid alien monster look like he's playing with a kitten. With Kiang so confidently keeping their rearguard safe, Kaden rushes toward the tiger, scuffling with Uma. He runs in and jumps onto the creature, plunging his rippers into its shoulders. The creature howls at the pain, but doesn't quite go down. Kaden pulls away from the flailing tiger and moves up to help support Jazz. To help keep her safe, Vaarah moves up just behind Jazz and Kaden's position, turning back to see Uma struggling with the tiger. She takes a shot with her pistol and puts it down for good. Finishing the turn, Jazz looks ahead through the jungle. Still no sign of the O12 base. She knows they still have a long way to go, but also she sees no sign of further resistance. Maybe this will be easier than she thought. Just as she turns to Kaden with a smile, an otherworldly scream can be heard behind them, and another Jaith emerges from the brush. Seeing more Shasvastii attacking from behind, Kiang realizes that he has to get everyone moving toward the O12 base. He pulls away from the tiger, turns and opens fire. He very comfortably blasts the tiger to pieces, turns and continues his retreat. The second Jaith now comes bounding through the foliage and into range of Kiang with his submachine gun. Just before opening fire, a tiger pitbull comes charging alongside the Jaith and closes in on Uma. Before anyone can react, the Jaith pulls the trigger, releasing a cascade of bullets toward Uma. The spray is wild, but manages to clip Uma for a point of damage. With hate in her eyes, Uma stares daggers at the Jaith. Kiang calls out to her to fall back, and fighting back the desire to shoot on the Jaith, she pulls away from the enemy. She still manages to turn and release her own hail of fire onto the tiger behind her. Unlike the Jaith, she manages to hit with almost every bullet, tearing the tiger down where it stood. With a smile, Uma continues to retreat toward the base. Kaden scouts ahead through the jungle and takes a front-line position to watch for danger. Jazz activates her hacking device and runs her Geist Aid program. She manages to buff both Kiang and Uma with a focus ability. She then pulls back, taking a position behind Kaden. The crew then order Vaarah up to take a safe position bang in the center between the crew members as they attempt to escort her safely. With the Jaith in pursuit behind them, Jazz runs forward through the jungles of Paradiso. Making her way into a clearing, a number of bodies are found scattered. Perhaps a scouting party sent out from the O12 base that was ambushed by the aliens? She also sees a console, a clear sign that they are getting closer to the base and possible safety. Jazz ignores the mutilated corpses as best she can and heads towards the console. The Jaith, right next to Kiang, makes an attack with its close combat weapon. When attacking in close combat, the Jaith turns all shields into successes and scores 2 in the first attack. But, thankfully, Kiang is able to block all the damage. The Jaith makes a second attack, scoring 3 successes, and Kiang initially rolls poorly, but thanks to Kiang's reroll on armor saves, he manages to block them all again. After surviving the Jaith's frenzied attacks and resisting the urge to fight back, Kiang pushes on through the jungle to catch up with the team that scouted ahead. Right between Kiang and Vaarah, an alien seed embryo appears with a seed soldier ready to explode from its cocoon. Seeing that Vaarah is in imminent danger, Uma spends her focus to put as many shots as possible into the seed embryo. With unerring accuracy, Uma rains down a hail of pistol fire and not only rips open the seed embryo's shell, but also lays waste to the seed soldier inside, nullifying the threat immediately. Uma then pulls back to take a position beside Kiang, creating a wall ready for Vaarah to move behind on her activation. In the meantime, Kaden runs forward to one of the soldiers' corpses and without any hesitation roots through pockets and satchels for anything that might aid the crew. He finds a medikit and a grenade. Kaden vows to make good use of the equipment so as not to let the soldier's death be in vain. He then moves a little further ahead to help scout out the jungle. Finally, Vaarah makes her way past Uma and Kiang to position herself just behind Kaden. The crew can feel they are getting closer to the compound, but along with finding the corpses of fallen O12 soldiers, the foreboding that something may be lying in wait ahead begins playing on everyone's minds. As if on cue, alien roars are heard from the brush ahead, and 3 tigers rear their ugly mugs as they bound toward the crew. Seeing the tigers all prowling together, Kaden reaches for the grenade he only just scavenged, primes it and throws it at the group. The grenade explodes, engulfing all the tigers in flames, and they are blown to pieces. When the dust settles, nothing is left of the creatures. With a sly grin on his face at the carnage wrought, Kaden strolls up next to Jazz and prepares to have a look at what treasures the other dead soldiers might be carrying. The Jaith run toward the rear guard and open fire on Kiang, desperate to take down the Yuqing Invincible. The Jaith lets fire from his submachine gun and manages to cause a wound to the heavy infantryman, but not without taking a wound himself from defensive fire. Jazz goes straight into hacking the console. She manages to extract a software sample from it, but she knows there are more secrets to be had. Jazz hacks the console once again and is able to download the Spotlight program to her hacking device. This program will allow her to target enemies, making them easier to shoot for her crewmates. Kiang ignores the Jaith and continues running through the jungle to catch up with the rest of the crew. Uma follows, and because she's a little more agile, ends up taking a scouting position ahead of everyone. The crew then order Vaarah to take up a position in the corner of the clearing, away from any action that might come their way. Uma looks on ahead and can see the clearing stretch on. And there it is, the entrance to the compound. But awaiting the crew is also a contingent of Shasvastii, made up of 3 tigers and a dreaded Gwylo. Uma moves up to get line of sight of the tigers and get them in range of her pistols. She unloads on the nearest creature and it goes down, but it doesn't faze the remaining 2 left, snarling at her. Uma then uses the rest of her movement to put some distance between her and the little monsters. The Jaith, seemingly with a vendetta toward Kiang, charges forward and opens fire on him. The aim is good and it manages to break through much of the armor, causing 3 points of damage to the leader of the Defiance. Even though the Jaith injured him, Kiang continues to ignore the pest and runs to the front of the crew's position to shield them from the incoming attack. He manages to fire on the tigers with his shotgun and takes down another, leaving only 1 tiger left. Seeing the tigers thinned out by the withering fire from the humans, the Gwylo roars and charges into Kiang with as much force as it can muster. It pulls its breaker pistol and fires into Kiang's chest. The breaker ammo ignores the toughness of Kiang's armor, but with his focus and increased BTS from Jazz, Kiang is able to reduce the damage done to only 1. Kaden now gets his chance to loot the corpse. He pulls another medikit, which he hands over to Jazz and, with a little disappointment, finds a repair kit, which he pockets on his person. Kaden then heads south, looking to flank the enemy in the next turn. The remaining tiger charges forward and slashes at Kiang with its razor claws, but Kiang's armor holds off the brunt of the attack, reducing the damage to 0. Jazz makes her way forward and uses her Geist aid to focus Uma and Kiang. Before ending her activation though, Jazz releases her remote, Billy. Billy zips past all the fighting and beelines toward the second console by the compound. Billy hacks the console and is able to make progress on hacking the system, but is unable to make anything happen as of yet. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a seed embryo appears by Billy. Vaarah, seeing the crew begin to struggle with the enemies around them, tries to help by moving close to the tiger and firing her pistol. She manages to score a wound, but nothing more. The crew of the Defiance are now within a stone's throw of the O12 compound, but with a security door still blocking them and the Gwylo within their midst, they are not home free yet. With the Gwylo at point-blank range and with a boost of focus, Kiang sticks his shotgun in its belly and fires. The damage roll is devastating, but the Gwylo's quick reactions save it from some of the blast, reducing the original 6 damage to 4. Still, a mighty amount of hurt dealt to the alien. It also leaves the Gwylo stunned, as well it should. Kiang follows up with a second shot, but unlike the first, his aim was lacking and the Gwylo easily evades, taking no damage. The Jaith, unable to give up on trying to take Kiang down, charges forward right next to Uma, but completely ignores her to fire on the big man by the Gwylo. The shots come raining in, but plink off Kiang's thick armor, thanks to his reroll save. Uma now takes aim at the Gwylo in the hopes of bringing it down after Kiang heavily wounded it with a shotgun. She uses her focus to add a yellow die, but she rolls a lot of blanks and 2 specials. However, Uma has the ability to turn any blanks into a success. With this in mind, she re-rolls the yellow die to try and get an extra success. Alas, the roll is the same, but it does allow her to activate the switch, ultimately giving her 4 successes on an otherwise awful roll. The Gwylo gets an extra black die to his defense thanks to his nanoscreen, but he still takes 3 damage. His 1 success then being cancelled by his stun state means Uma also comes out unscathed in the exchange. With the Gwylo on the verge of death, Uma fires again. Her roll is strong, getting her another 4 successes, with the specials switch and some shields to help defend her. The Gwylo conversely rolls very poorly, and he's put down from the combined assaults of the Defiance's ranged weapon crew. Although the pressure has been lowered by taking out the Gwylo, there are still threats to the crew. Vaarah continues to fire at the tiger, and this time rolls 2 successes with a 3rd from a switch, doing more than enough to kill the creature and put a bullet through its skull. Vaarah then makes her way to the compound, but stops in her tracks when she sees the seed embryo pulsing and looking ready to explode on anything that comes near it. Jazz comes to join Vaarah and raises her stun pistol to shoot the seed embryo, threatening her beloved Billy. Her shots ring true and they pierce the seed embryo's tough hide, causing a rancid ooze to pour from the now gaping hole. A seed soldier emerges, wounded but alert and angry. Billy does his best to ignore the slathering alien behind him and works on hacking the console. However, the pressure must have gotten to him as he's unable to roll a single symbol. The plucky remote gives it another go, and this time scores a range of symbols, getting closer to releasing the locking mechanism on the security door. Kaidan now comes charging toward the seed soldier and swings his rippers into the flesh of the alien. The swing was so sure that it separates the alien's head from its neck. With the way to the O12 compound now cleared, it looks certain that the crew of the Defiance will deliver their charge safely. However, the door isn't open yet, and more of those vicious tigers are bounding toward their position. Continuing to ignore what is behind, Uma charges toward the compound and opens fire on the tigers. She manages to score 3 damage thanks to her ability to change blanks to successes and activating her switch. 1 tiger down, 2 to go. The Jaith, knowing that Vaarah must be eliminated before getting into O12 hands, charges between the heroes and brandishes a knife. Vaarah is unable to block the attack and the knife plunges into her side. Causing 4 damage, she's badly wounded, but not down yet. Jazz, knowing that the door needs to be opened as soon as possible, charges past the tigers and starts hacking the console using the added advantage of carrying a hacking device. With the help from Billy's previous hacking, Jazz is able to get the final symbols needed and opens the door, but not without also getting a second software sample. With the door open, Billy escapes from the danger of the tigers and runs into the O12 facility. The tigers then turn their attention to Kaidan. The first makes an attack that rips into Kaidan's side, causing 4 damage. The following attack is even more visceral, causing 5 damage. If it weren't for Kaidan's almost perfect defense, reducing it to only 1. The second tiger now makes its attacks, and again the damage is high, but Kaidan blocks most of it, only taking a single wound. The defense is strong from Kaidan, but all these wounds are starting to add up. The final attack comes in, but in a turn of events, Kaidan blocks all damage and actually manages to wound the tiger. With her wound bleeding her out, Vaarah makes her way to the relative safety of the O12 facility. She is closely followed by Kaidan, who is also in need of dire medical attention. Kiang uses his activation to move into the O12 facility, and that only leaves Jazz and Uma still outside. Can they get in before they are ripped apart by the savage tigers and the Jaith? Jazz takes the first activation and runs into the O12 facility. As she does so, she turns and fires on one of the tigers. Thanks to Uma's training on the ship, she's able to re-roll one of her die and manages to wound and immobilize the creature. With one tiger unable to move, it leaves only one to go after Uma. It charges in, snarling, but Uma has a decent defense roll, reducing the damage dealt to her to 2. Uma then takes the opportunity to slip past the adversaries around her, run into the facility and close the door behind her, securing the crew and their HVT Vaarah Zandar. O12 operatives soon reinforce their position and gun down the remaining aliens in the facility. For successfully escorting Vaarah Zandar back into the hands of O12, each member of the Defiance gets 1 intel point each. Also, for not having to use their auto medkits and getting back to the O12 facility before the end of turn 8, each member receives an additional 2 points. Uma also picks up 1 more for being the hero to put down the Gwailo. Kiang, now with 6 intel points, spends 5 of them on getting heavy armor with a contender, adding an additional yellow die to his attack rolls. For his specialization, Kiang takes the leadership upgrade Target Acquired, which allows him to put the targeted state onto an enemy once per turn. Uma, now with 7 intel points, gets a heavy pistol to help increase her chances of causing immense damage in combat. With all her yellow dice, it shouldn't be too much trouble to attain the switch needed to one-shot most line infantry they come up against. She also upgrades her skills with the dual weapons upgrade Precision, allowing her to gain line of sight through block spaces occupied by allies. Kaden just buys a demolition charge that is a one-use item that can be used to make an explosive attack or instantly destroy a structure. He saves his remaining 4 intel points for future purchases. Kaden gets the mobility skill Multi-Terrain, which removes the movement penalty for moving onto obstructed or occupied spaces. Finally, Jazz saves her intel points and gets the controller upgrade Ghost Server. This gives her remote Billy the remote presence ability, allowing Jazz to perform interacts from Billy's position. He also receives the repeater upgrade, letting Jazz use Billy's position to perform hacking actions, greatly improving the range and scope of her hacking attempts. The team have also managed to garner 4 software samples. They now spend 2 of them to gain the Raider program Gotcha, letting their hacker immobilize targets with ease. Just as the crew's adrenaline cools and they begin to feel the ache of their endeavors, news comes in of survivors from the Orpheus inside a besieged facility right here on Paradiso. If they can be found alive, they will make invaluable members to the Defiance.